I'm gonna say yeah. I'm gonna say my thoughts and express my opinions. Debates are useful. I think it's good to debate. I think it's good to know how to debate. Now, just saying that in an unqualified sense is kind of weird, right? Because what is so good about debate? Why is debate something that we should cherish and value? Okay, so I mean, there's reason to think that debate can move forward our understanding of the world, but it's not debate that's doing it. It's our contribution, intellectual and otherwise, our kind of willingness to put things out there and to make arguments and to format them and to make them rigorous and well constructed. That's what kind of gives us this sort of like intellectual progress. Okay, so then what's the problem with being a debate bro? Well, what is a debate bro? I mean, it's kind of hard to given a definition, right? But I would say that a debate bro is largely somebody who is committed to the idea of the intellectual benefits of debate, but in a certain sense, they get carried away, and they make it into this sort of like a game or an end in itself, right? Right, debating just for the sake of debating, right? They make it this thing that it becomes their whole identity. And one thing you have to keep in mind when it comes to being good at debate is it's sort of like being good at conversation, right? And I think that it is appropriate for us to think of a debate as a type of conversation, right? Because there's a back and forth, there's an exchange of information and ideas, even if it's under this sort of contentious um, appearance, right? A debate ultimately is an exchange of ideas. It's a dialogue, right? So it is a type of conversation. Problem is, there are some of the well-known debaters are people who are very bad conversationalists, and you can't be a good debater unless you're a good conversationalist. So um, then it stands to reason that many of the most well-known debaters are bad debaters. They're not good at debate, right? They may think that they're good at debate. They may posture. They may put on the appearance of this being an expert, right? But you look at people. Let's think of an example of somebody that I've been listening to recently is this guy named T Jump, right? This guy is a terrible debater, right? He's very bad at debate, but he doesn't know that he's bad at debate, and he probably thinks he's very good at debate. But he's actually, I mean, if you actually pay attention, like he's a terrible conversationalist. He is not open-minded, and he doesn't really present arguments, right? He just sort of presupposes the truth of his own views, regardless of what conversation he's in. And he's just a very pretentious person, right? He's just a very condescending and pretentious individual. But I can rag on him, but obviously it's not just him, right? There's other people in the debate space, but that's just the person that comes to mind when I think of somebody who's bad at debate, um, but who is known as a debater, right? And something that you sort of see is that um, when you treat debate as this sort of like game, right, where there's a winner and there's a loser, then you start to try to form strategies for winning debates, right? You start to form tactical ways that you can gain the tactical advantage. You treat it as this sort of like a game. There are these strategies that you can employ in order to get the upper hand in a debate. But this is not what debate really is at the end of the day, right? What are the reasons why a lot of people who practice a lot of debate and do a lot of debate are still not that good at debate? Is because they sort of treat it as this game where, and you can treat it as a game to a certain extent, but there is a certain limit on how far ahead you can get if you're just putting on a performance, if you're just like playing the game of, you're not actually engaging in an honest, open dialogue with the other person, right? You're not actually, this isn't, you can put on the performance, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a performance for a lot of people. They're not really interested in having a one-to-one direct conversation about the subject matter, right? Um, and to a certain extent, this is why I kind of prefer talking to people directly rather than through text, right? Because in text, there's all this sort of like formality, right? This pretentiousness, this formality that in a lot of ways is quite fake, right? It's just a lot of fluff, right? And I think that one of the things that a lot of debaters do is they engage in this fluff, right? This sort of superficial formality in order to sort of buy time, in order to kind of make the debate go for longer, and to a certain extent, in order to make themselves appear more, to have a higher degree of expertise than they actually do. This is a big problem with debate bros because I would say I would think that a lot of debate bros, they're very formal. They're very they use a lot of big words, right? They use a lot of fancy words, but a lot of this is just fluff, right? A lot of this is a way of putting on a performance. It's right. It's not real, right? They're not actually having a conversation because they don't see debate as a type of conversation, but debate is in fact a type of conversation, right? If you think of debate as being something other than as a distinct category of its own, separate from conversation, rather than as a subtype of conversation, then you're never really going to be very good at debate, right? Because you're just going to see debate as this other separate thing. So you don't actually have to develop the conversational skills that are necessary to be good at debate in a conversational sense. And then you just end up being very horrible at debate because you're lacking the right framing, right? You're lacking the right perspective on the matter. You just view it as a type of competitive game, right? This competitive performance or this sport. And that is, as you can tell, this is what I think is problematic about a lot of debate culture right now. So, there's a lot of different perspectives on it, but I really do think that in order to become good at debate, you have to be good at conversation. You have to develop conversational skills. You have to learn how to talk to the other person, right? To have a dialogue. If you don't know how to do this, then you're not going to be good at debate, right? And it's not going to matter because you're going to think you're good at debate, but you're going to probably end up, if you don't develop any conversational skills while you're trying to get better at debate, you're going to probably end up like somebody like T-Jump, right? Somebody who has zero conversational skills, who does not know how to have a conversation, and as a consequence does not know how to have a debate because they don't view debate as a type of conversation.